RfRx on Monday evening. I am your host and fearless psychic. My name is Helen. I am an recovering from religion ambassador. I am the virtual support group leader and occasional co-host here on RfRx. Kara is taking the night off to troll stop and may have to leave halfway through the meeting. So they put me and Sasha in charge. I don't know why.
Oh, they've handed it over to the amateurs. Oh, we'll try our best, everyone.
Yeah, but now you're all 20% cooler because you're here. So look at it that way.
Absolutely.
With me tonight is Sasha. Sasha, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here and stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. So I'm Sasha. I'm down in Sydney, Australia. I'm part of the Recovering from Religion support group team. And we have about 40, 50 odd support groups now all around the world. And I assist with looking after those. Many of you who are attending here this evening would have had the opportunity to join in with our support groups. We'll talk a little bit more about that afterwards. But yeah, a real privilege to be along here with you, Helen. And we have a fantastic guest tonight. Can't wait to hear his presentation.
Yes. I'm very excited for this presentation as well. So let me tell you all why we're here. What is RfRx? So for those of you who are not yet 20% cooler and have been living under a rock, let me tell you what RfRx is. So this is a weekly podcast that we do on relevant topics that are additional to things we talk about recovering from religion, which deals like things about mental health, different religious practices that people have left, the issues of leaving those things. So just basically, this is like a little bit of education, a little bit of conversation about those issues those of us who have left religion or going through the process are dealing with. This is not a replacement for our online support groups or our online community. This is just, good way to get to know people, get that education that you need, get a little bit more, things to make your brain think. That is the goal of this presentation. Also, too, this is to complement also some of the things that we do talk about in the support groups and our online community, and to get some good advice and coping skills. So, everything that we do kind of all works together. So this is just to give you, again, another tool to put in your toolbox to help you along that way. If you have any topical questions, comments, hate mail, you want to be, 20% cooler and get involved or whatever it is, please go to send Kara an email, because Kara loves emails. So go to RfRx at recoveringfromreligion.org. And also, if you want to see any of our previous recordings, go to our YouTube channel. Also, you can also find the podcast on anywhere where you get your podcasts, at Spreaker, Apple, Spotify. So if you are at work or on a jog and you need some more RfRx, you can find our recordings on there. So Sasha, you want to tell us about what we do at this volunteer organization that we belong to?
Thanks, Helen. No, I will do. Look, if this is your first time here, welcome. And as most people would be aware, though, Recovering from Religion is a fantastic volunteer-run organisation that focuses on providing hope, healing and support to people who might be navigating their way out of religion or questioning where they stand, or just trying to work out their authentic life. We're not here to deconvert people. We're not here to send negative things about religions. We're just here to support people and meet people where they're at. And this presentation this evening is just one of the many programs and tools that we offer to support people. With hope, healing and support, we find that healing is so important, particularly for people who might be making their way out of religion, because they've got a lot to deal with. All of us who have walked that journey have to process perhaps decades of our life. And the most important thing is to know that you're not alone. So our healing aspect is to say that we have people here who are trained to support, provide an empathetic listening ear. We have a helpline. We have a 24-hour-a-day phone line or chat line available through our main page of recoveringfromreligion.org, where you can just contact somebody who can listen empathetically, who understands what you've been through, and perhaps direct you to resources or support that might be of benefit. They're not there to tell you what to do. They're not there to provide answers, but just support. And whatever it is that you need, we're well equipped and well trained through our leadership to be able to provide. So please go to the main page of recoveringfromreligion.org. You'll see the links there to the phone line or to the chat bubble. And yeah, we invite anybody to contact us. So that's the first part, I guess, of our mission statement, the healing aspect. But then we talked about hope. Can you share that with us, Helen, please?
Yeah, and we can all use a little bit of hope these days. Absolutely. So, and the best way to do this is by sharing and listening to people's personal stories of leaving religion, where they are in their process, and connecting with people that are on the same journey that you're on. That means a lot to people going through this process. So you can do it on our blog and our podcast. So if you go to our blog at medium.com excommunications and our podcast at recoveryfromreligion.org/podcast. These are ways you can connect with people that have been on the same journey that you're going on, and to get that little bit of hope, because we're all in this together and you're not going through it alone. Nobody lives in a bubble. Everybody has similar experiences, and getting to connect with others that have been on this journey will give you a little bit of hope, get you through the next moment. And that's what we're all looking for. And on top of that, we do a little bit of healing as well that leads to the healing process. And Sasha, you want to cover what we do? I'm sorry, on the support level.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. The support groups are something that's very dear to my heart, and I really cannot say enough good things about the support groups. The program was set up from very early humble beginnings with one support group. It's now spread to around about 60 groups that we have all around the world. And these support groups are run by trained volunteers who are able to provide a safe space for people to process what they've been through, share stories. It's confidential. We meet people where they're at with their journey. If you go to the main page of Recovering from Religion, look down for the link to support groups. There's an amazing map our resource team have provided for us to show where the groups are located. Now, you don't have to attend the group in your local area. Sometimes people feel more comfortable attending a group on the other side of the world. That's totally fine. Our support groups are actually run online now as well as in person. So have a look through. Some of them are in person, some of them are online. Whichever fits your circumstances, please feel free to join our support groups. You'll find the links there. As I say, whether it's one in your own community or on the other side of the world, you're more than welcome to attend. And, you know, these support groups are peer support. They're run by people who just want to provide that support as a fellow human being. But sometimes, you know, we know that it's necessary to take that extra step and gain the support that only a trained therapist can provide us. So again, on our main page, you'll see a link to our sister organization, the Secular Therapy Project, a fantastic database of well-trained, vetted therapists who understand things such as religious trauma, how to process and navigate our way through, how to survive and thrive, how to become our best possible version of ourselves. Therapy is so important, and sometimes we fail to take advantage of the tools that are available to us. We just stress to people, please find a link through. We'll help you find a therapist that fits with you and that will help you and thrive. I can vouch for it myself. So many of us here will vouch for the excellent people that we have on our register through the Secular Therapy Project. They will use evidence-based therapies, and they won't just tell you to go home and pray about things or anything like that, which can be a risk with certain therapists who might exist and still hold on to a belief structure. So yeah, we encourage you to do that. Now we have more resources available. Helen, over to you.
Yes. So as I said before, that this kind of ties into the hope aspect that I was speaking with before, is getting connected with people that are on the same journey that you are. And a great way to do that is through our online community. Now, this is an invite only. So you need to be invited by an agent over on the chat or the call line, and they will give you a link to our online community. And this is for anyone based on, like, you know, where you are in your religious background, whether you're Jehovah's Witness or Catholic or Jewish or you're LGBTQIA. You connect with those people. Wherever, we have a bunch of different communities on our Slack platform that you can connect with people that are been through a certain background, are still getting through those things, but need the support. And that is a great way to connect with others, because it's always good to talk to someone that's from the same background that you are from. You know the language, you know, especially if it's like, you know, Sasha is a former Jehovah's Witness. I'm a former Catholic. though we both come from religion, the way that it looks is different for both of us. So, and it's always good when you connect with people that are from those similar backgrounds, because there's a language that you know, and you know the ins and outs of your particular faith and how that deconstruction is going to work from that particular faith. So we encourage you to join our online community. Also as well, we have, on top of the support group meetings, we have weekly Zoom meetings for like hanging out. We have them on Friday and Sunday, which are also an invite through our Slack. So you have to be part of the online community to get in on those. So, but that's a great way just to hang out, meet people, that are going through the process or have been through the process, get to hang out with our volunteers, get to know them as people, which is always fun. So that's a great way to kind of make friends, online friends. I've made plenty of online friends through this process. And I think that's really good for people to get together and also, find community online as well. Because I know during the pandemic, we all need a little bit more community. And I know that because of these online meetings, I got to meet wonderful people and form friendships and get the support that I needed, not only as a volunteer, just when I needed support as a human being, the people at RfR were there. Also too, so we also want to, if you don't want to go through the process of adding us on Slack, which I suggest you do anyway, but if you need also additional people to talk to, get into some good conversations, we are streaming this on the atheist community of Discord. I am also there, so you can talk to me there as well. Our friend Nikki is streaming this talk over there, and we also stream all the atheist community of Austin shows on the Discord. Also, there's a bunch of people there that you can chat, talk about anything from sexuality to religion to politics. Or if you just want to shoot the shit about like the new Sandman series that's on Netflix, which I really recommend, you can do that as well. So you can connect with people on there. Also, now we're going to talk into my favorite thing that you should do. So I'm going to take that over to Sasha because he's going to sell it to you, man.
Oh, I didn't mean to take it over from you. My apologies. One of the things you said, Helen, which I find so important, is the fact that we have an amazing community here at Recovering from Religion, and we're always looking for people to volunteer. Perhaps you might like to be a part of this team, and it might not necessarily be your comfort zone to host a support group, or you might not feel comfortable taking a phone chat and supporting. You might like to just work behind the scenes and help us with some of our computer-based projects, our database, our this, our that, whatever we're doing. So whatever it is that you feel you've got skills in, or if you'd like to be part of the team, we welcome people to apply via the main page, and just put your hand up and say, hey, I'd love to volunteer with you all. One of the most important things, I think, Helen, you'll probably attest to this too, is the empowerment and the strength that we get by volunteering, and that it actually helps us in our healing process. When we're part of a team that volunteers, and that whole givers gain, we gain a lot back in this whole process of volunteering. So we're always in need of new volunteers. Whatever your skill set, whatever it is that you feel that you can be of assistance in, please let us know. We'd love to have you as part of the team. As Dr. Ray was chatting to us earlier, when things started off all those years ago with Recovering from Religion, he never foresaw things growing so much. Well, it grew because of an amazing array of volunteers that just wanted to be part of this momentum. So yeah, feel free to join the team.
Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest. Our guest is David Teachout. He was here last week and he's back because we made him do this. Anyway, David is a mental health therapist and photographer, focused on teaching and how creativity intersects with mental flexibility and working through the inevitable difficulties in life. David grew up as a Christian fundamentalist, attending a Bible college and receiving a bachelor's in theology and psychology. During his studies there, David deconverted and has been on a journey of more deeply appreciating the many nuances of humanity ever since. David has a master's in both forensic psychology and counseling psychology, and is currently working on a doctorate in clinical psychology. Damn, bro, that's a lot of degrees. Wow, I'm impressed. David has actively been working in the field of psychology as a therapist, social worker, advocate, and subject matter expert for over 15 years. So, David, let's get this thing started. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and let's get going.
Thank you, Helen. It is a lot of degrees, and I have the student loan debt to prove it. So it's fine. Yeah, some people have mortgages, some people have degrees. It's all a wash. It's kind of yeah. I will make a separate plug as well for the psychotherapy project, not only because I'm on it, but because it is quite an amazing program filled with a lot of great experts helping people out. And I will be the first to attest to the number of clients that I work with already around religious trauma and religious informed issues that having a therapist that is aware of and will not immediately go to religious quotations with you can be extremely encouraging and freeing. Not that I can't work, of course, speaking personally with religious clients, I do, but it's still it is one of those things that when you can really speak the language and understand how some of this stuff works, it's hugely helpful. So highly recommend that. Yeah, so 2 weeks in a row.
You just love being here, man. I love listening to yourself talk. That's why you keep showing up.
I love you, Helen.
I love you too, David. That's why we're friends.
And for anyone who missed last week's discussion, can you sum that up in a couple of sentences, David, what you all discussed last week and how we can find the copy of that?
It was not a heavy subject at all.
It was not. It was very light. It was practically cream cheese. No, it was primarily about the new task force that this organization has developed around the abortion angle and the reason in fostering some support and resources around people and for people across the nation in light of the recent Supreme Court ruling concerning abortion access, and really making sure that one, people are supported regardless of one's proclivities ideologically, but as well to foster further conversation and support around just conversation and making sure that people can find the resources that are needed in the midst of what is undoubtedly a continuing unfolding craziness that is the legal landscape that we are living in. I'm reminded of the Klingon curse, may you live in interesting times. It's we are in the midst of it, so we're here to help.
It's exhausting living in interesting times.
And I'm sure a lot of that will tie in with today's presentation as well.
Yes.
Okay, so tonight the topic is the psychology of abortion. Nothing is simple. 1, have you had a personal experience, whether you or in relation to another, in connection to an abortion? Answers are yes, no, likely, but not sure, or I work in services related to it. Number 2, do you consider abortion to be purely a religious question? Number 1, yes. No, depends on the religion. Depends on whether we're talking about abortion or contraception, or C and D. Number 3, is the social question of abortion tied directly to the issues of socially prescribed sex roles? Yes, no, the binary here is obnoxious. And seriously, how could this not be related? And number 4, the most important question on the survey: who is your favorite Stranger Things character? Mike, 11, Dustin, Lucas, Nancy, Jonathan, Joyce, Jim Hopper, or other. We're going to call that the Demogorgon.
We needed another question in there, or another answer. What Stranger Things?
I'm a Dustin fan myself. He always makes me happy, but I'm biased. So anyway, now that we got all that out of the way, I would like David to Please continue why abortion in this discussion is not a simple conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have to say, putting together the poll questions, I was gonna go with a fourth serious one. I'm like, I can't do this to everybody. I can't. And so yes, Dustin. Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say Dustin's probably one of my favorites, largely because he's cooler than I ever hoped to be. So yeah, it's just
life goals, man.
Life goals. It totally is. It totally is. So yeah, I mean, the topic here, abortion psychology, we're definitely will discuss issues related to sexuality as well. But again, as it relates back to, abortion itself. And as anybody who's seen me present before, which at this point I think might be 8, so close to 10, gonna get a t-shirt. Awesome. But is that the subtitle of Nothing is Simple really should just be the subtitle of like everything I speak about. So I have a visceral reaction to anything that is portrayed as being easy, simple, basic, or well, of course that's how it is. I get hives internally. It's ugly. So and I have no hair, so the hives are very obvious. So it's just the way it works.
That's why the hair fell out, man.
Well, yeah, actually was talking with Rob about this I think one of the previous presentations, and I was like, you can literally see the progression of the presentations I've given in the progression of the hair loss. So I'm blaming RfR for this. This is how this works. So in the spirit of looking at the complications, I will try to post as much as possible. I know there's several links that will be posted as we go on and at the end around resources around psychological studies and so on that are related to abortion, and highly recommend reading through them as much as possible. I will reference multiple papers, and at the end, I'll see if I can actually post all of them as well. Sometimes you might have access to them, sometimes you might not, depending on school affiliation and whatnot. But I have some quotes from all of them as well. And that actually begins the complications around this. And one of the things, and again, anytime, doesn't matter who the source is. The source is secular, source is religious, does not matter. Anybody who starts any of these conversations with, I know the answer to this, likelihood is they don't, or at the very least it's self-serving, and it's not going to be ultimately helpful for anybody involved. So you're going to hear from me a lot of and a lot of it depends, and a lot of depends on this kind of categorization here, because when it comes to studies on this, to say that it is barren with possibility is just the way it is. It's very difficult to find some legitimate. There's a lot of studies. They're all very small. So, for instance, majority of what I'm finding, is related to the first trimester. Which makes sense because that's the predominant time frame in which the abortion procedure typically occurs. Most of the studies involve very few people, and by few I will mean like less than a dozen, which in my mind is difficult to even, why are you publishing it? But I have extra high annoying standards, and so any kind of definitive assessments out of these things are really difficult to really be able to say in a way that would it all be helpful. At the same time, there's a lot of illusions and there's a lot of indications around things. You just have to be really difficult whenever coming across. And so when you hear people say, like, there is no mental health issues related to abortion. Depends, and we'll get into why that depends. Or on the reverse, like women are always devastated whenever this occurs. Anytime, always puts in there, you have to really be like, but as well, sometimes, yeah, actually, it is pretty terrible. And we'll go into actually some indications of why that happens as well. I believe Sasha had a point.
Yeah, David, I was just going to ask along those lines. We're talking about some of the studies and the research that's done. Are you saying that often these are coming from a place of a biased conclusion, and that some of these studies are trying to find an answer that fits with a predetermined conclusion? Or where are you drawing a lot of your research and experience from when it comes to these sorts of studies?
Yeah, a lot of it is as much public, that it can. So PubMed is a great source. National Institutes of Science is another. There's a lot of places. APA, in fact, that is one that was able to reference. The APA actually had an entire task force that they put together around mental health and its relationship to abortion. They did, I believe it was 20 years of longitudinal studies following over 1,000 women. So really good information in that. Even there, I will say that I at least personally have some quibbles over some of the languaging involved. There's clearly a ideological bias, and I say that with the utmost of affection because I don't inherently believe a bias is bad. I think it's inevitable, but the only thing we can do is try to be as aware of it as possible and its influence. So it's not a criticism per se, so much as it is just an awareness that some of the ways that things get worded at times can showcase the fact they're going for a particular bent. That being said as well, totally other, that would be very off topic, but as far as like just studies in general, the social sciences have been going through quite a difficult period in the last decade or so of replication crisis. There's been some interesting criticisms of that criticism. I don't buy it, but that's me. And so basically anything that's here, you take with a big old brick of salt whenever you're coming across like, this social science experiment proves this. No, it doesn't. So, there's always the difficulty of once you step away from quantitative, directly, immediately measurable data around that is easily applied across population groups, you have a really hard time saying anything definitive. And unfortunately, when it comes to psych and sociology, you're almost never dealing with quantitative data. And even the tools that are used, some of them are great and they try to, there's always pieces missing. And so, any quantitative studies in psych, as far as I'm concerned, are great as a starting ground, but they are not the final say on anything. I'm sure any number of, post PhD people are screaming at me right now, but I'm highly critical of my own field. So there's that. A lot of the studies involve abortion due to fetal abnormalities. So we're not looking necessarily at abortion by choice or an elective medical procedure. So that already now is like anything you have to say conclusion wise based on those is now going to be a bit of a problem because you're not actually dealing with a sizable percentage of the abortions that occur. In fact, making it even more crazy is that variations in consequences that people feel will shift depending on the form that the abortion procedure took. Literally, surgery will result in often different reactions than, say, RU486 or another pill. Like, it just, there are different, for a variety of reasons, not only medical issues, but social acceptance, the amount of care that has to be taken. All of these things go into this whole process, and we will actually touch on some of those things and the social kind of ramifications and ripple effects and influences on this. And of course, we'll be talking a lot about grief. So do want to make a real quick point here that obviously this is already a touchy subject that many people may have already. So actually, I'm going to apologize really quickly. Should probably made this statement right at the beginning, but making it now. But that is, if you at any time you are feeling in any way negatively triggered by what's going on, like, it is totally fine to take a step back. Definitely fine to do that. You need to shut me off. For that matter, if you just don't even like the sound of my voice, you can turn me off. You can read the transcript later if you want. Regardless, truly, just be able to shut things down a little bit, take a step back, walk around a little bit, get your body moving, come back. It's totally fine. Seek the support, call up the helpline, do anything besides necessarily going, I can churn through this. I'm a big believer in resilience and building these things in dealing with adversity up to the point of where it is actually negatively impacting. So just want to pause for a moment to point that out.
Thank you for saying that, David. I think that's very important, and that we stress to those who are here watching, we're not pushing a particular opinion or whatever, or conclusion here. You're presenting information. We understand the emotional intensity of this topic, and we're here to present information and facts so that you can process it in your own way. And very wise advice. Everybody needs to come to their own conclusions after the information's presented.
I will say that I will end this with 3 kind of helpful tips on navigating all of this. And as well, obviously I have an opinion. I don't shy from that. I'm not a big believer, even as a therapist, even in session, going, you know what, I'm just a blank slate. No, I actually have opinions. I'm not here to, particularly in my therapeutic role, which is not what I am doing here, but in a therapeutic role, it's not my position to voice my opinion on anybody. But I'm not going to lie and say I have no opinion on anything. Of course I do. I'm a human being, and I'm me. So not having an opinion just is anathema to my very existence. So, it's just, even when I probably shouldn't. So it's just one of those things that is there. And that being said, this topic in particular, a note that in last week's presentation, a high, state of criticism. So I'm always going, I really could have done better. And so taking this last week to get a little clearer on some thoughts was really helpful. And even that being said, all of this is going to be, in the end, I'm here to foment further discussion, because I think there is no definitive point here. And what I want actually is more discussion. If there is one caveat positive that I will throw out for what has happened with the Supreme Court, is that it has forced all of us to buck up or shut up. And it is, I'm not necessarily agreeing with how it went about it, but it is something where we all now have to really be clear, or we should, about what our policies are, what we're supporting, how we think about a lot of these questions. And we can't just simply go, oh, I belong to this camp, and then leave it alone, as if that was the summation of all that is needed. So getting away from that kind of identity, in the avoidance strategy is, no longer, at least in my opinion, helpful or needed or useful, because we now have to deal with real live things that are now being splashed all over the internet, in the news, around real struggles, and how we're going to look at such things at, just that run the panoply of medical issues around this, and how it works in actual lived experience. which is, I think, what actually ended up happening in Kansas, which I will get to actually a little bit later. So
good point you make
yes.
there about, yeah, that in this polarized world, we need to be able to discuss topics, even these difficult topics, with a respect and a dignity, and not just come at it from a position of polarization and camps, as you rightly say. To be able to discuss topics properly is the best way to resolve things, or perhaps help our society function more smoothly.
Yeah, I am a fervent believer in dialogue. I think it is the bedrock of small L liberal democracy, and the only way we can actually move forward as a society. Anytime we delve into any form of authoritarianism, I don't care if I agree with you, it is not ultimately helpful. And I'd rather go through the trenches of difficulty and the incrementalism at times than to try to force things down, happening, because ultimately that comes up to bite us in the ass. It just does. So this and that's another point around the politics of all of this, is that we all do this needs to be a national conversation again, and that's partly what got paused. I think I actually do agree a bit with Ginsburg before and others who stated, when Roe v. Wade first started, that it kind of put a band-aid over it and then glued it, thinking it would be fine, and it wasn't. Because unfortunately, when you rely on authoritarian structures in a democracy, eventually people you may not agree with get in control. So we have to make a concerted effort. There is, I love actually a comparison between, say, abortion and gay marriage, and the reality is that gay marriage in many ways occurred and now has, for all intents and purposes, social support, even amongst religious, Republicans. Is that there is still a, latest polling was like 65% being okay with gay marriage. I mean, that, like, the switch that is a nearly 30%, 30 to 40% switch in opinions in the course of like 20 years. That's nuts. It's absolutely incredible as far as social change is concerned. And I think part of it was incremental. We had issues around, I'm totally blanking. What's the pre-marriage? It was legalized. It was domestic partnerships. You had, for that matter, you had Will and Grace, which I think is hilarious because the whole show was actually used as a way of showing the down. I think it was focused on the family that had a problem with it. Is Dobson saying that it was like the signal for the downfall of civilization? Yeah, well,
I'm still waiting for that to happen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, Dobson.
So David,
a lot of these things.
When you say so there's a distinct difference between when something is put into law and society actually accepting it or having a view that is more progressive. And so you're trying to draw the distinction here between the fact that society progresses along and that it's not necessarily represented by when a particular law is enacted or not.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, you try to thread the needle between laws are an example of social morality, while at the same time laws are almost inherently more conservative. And I mean that in a broad sense of the term conservative, not a political party. More conservative than societies tend to be. And there's a whole lot more to be said there as far as technology and whatnot. That's a whole other topic.
You mentioned Kansas then as an example of that. So we have a society progressing to a point where the recent polling has shown very much where society stands with their view, and yet legally it needed to be a line needed to be drawn in the sand with it.
Yes. Yep. And in fact, so before I can touch on Kansas first, actually, is I think, did everybody do the poll?
Yes.
Yes, do you want the results?
It's just gonna be fun.
All right, share. All right, there you go.
Okay, that's unexpected.
Interesting. For those who can't read the poll, we'll read that out. So the first question, have you had a personal experience, whether yourself or in relation to another, in connection to an abortion? We have 41% saying yes, 48% saying no, and 10% saying likely but not sure. David, can you speak to that?
That was surprising. So interesting. And here's a polling quote or point to consider. Always consider the population you're polling from. So there is no definitive statements to be made from this. My brain wants to, because that's what we do as a human species, but no. But it is interesting as far as who's listening in right now. And no, thank you for that, because that'll shift a little bit of what to talk about.
Interesting. And then the second one was, do you consider abortion to be purely a religious question? 10% said yes, 79% said no. Very interesting.
That is interesting.
Also surprising. Well, all right.
Third question, is the social question of abortion tied directly to issues of socially prescribed sex roles? 45% said yes, 7% said no, 10% said the binary here is obnoxious, interesting, and then 38% said, seriously, how could this not be related? So
I love it.
Yeah.
We'll lump yes and the last one really together.
I think so.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you're right, we're drawing upon perhaps an audience here, a smaller number of, it's not necessarily reflective of society, and also an audience that's made their way to an RfR presentation. So does that skew the results in some way?
Oh, of course it does. Yeah. And at the same time, it's always fascinating. So
yeah, this
is one of those things where I'm practically a free speech purist, because if for no other reason, then I like to know what people actually think. I want you to feel like you can say anything, because then I know who I'm dealing with.
That's how I feel. I'm like, oh, you're not on my team. Okay, now I know. That's how I feel. So,
So if we extrapolate that out, or if we extend that out, we talked a little bit about Kansas and the results there. That's obviously a poll taken on a much, much bigger demographic of people, or numbers of people. How do the results that have come through with the recent poll there reflect when you look at things on a national scale?
Yeah, so it's interesting with Kansas, and there's actually a quote or an article that just recently, like 2 days ago, came out that I think I gave it in the resources. If not, I can share it as well. But and it really well done as far as like literal interviewing people and so on the ground. But there was one quote in particular. Everybody in America thinks Kansas is so conservative, but Kansas is pretty staunchly anti-government. And that was from Allie Scholes, who's an emergency medicine doctor. And I have no problem saying the name, because literally it's out there. So the key point here is wanting to be very, very careful about noting Kansas's vote as simply being okay with abortion rights per se, so much as looking at a lot of things that were going on. Part of it, the law was really poorly written. Part of it was, I think, judicial overreach. But as well, there is this thing about being, stating that, the whole between you and your doctor thing. There's a reason why it was a big selling point behind everything related to the Affordable Care Act, or otherwise known as Obamacare. It was like, oh, there's going to be the government's going to get between you and your doctor and all these choices, which is hilarious. The conservatives were saying it then, and now it's actually what they want. But anyway, here and there. But that's just it. I mean, people gravitate towards they want, and so much of this is going to, and we'll see continually over and over and over and over again, is this tension between autonomy and freedom, or autonomy and authority, and what that looks like in practice. And people People contain multitudes. Let's kind of put it that way. We have a lot of stories around how we consider ourselves in relation to societal influences, how we consider ourselves in relation to even our own ideas, issues of free will, autonomy, how this works, or how we relate to government.
So you're saying peer pressure has a peer
pressure, totally.
Yeah.
I'm always struck by the people who are like, I don't know why politicians spend so much money on polling, on advertising. That doesn't influence anybody.
Oh, okay.
Really?
All right.
Really? No, it does. And the key thing in that particular example is that it doesn't. We define a lot of this often by starting with as if there is this 0 to 1 only. There's nothing in between. So a influence must be nothing or everything, and that is never how this works. All you need to do is be able to tweak and influence percentages. There is an infinity between 0 and 1 that can be done in order to curb just right, or in the right circumstances, to get you into a certain mindset that'll make certain choices more amenable. I mean, we all know this, actually, just at a very basic level. We can, come across an ad around our favorite candy bar, and Butterfinger all the way, and and go, I was like,
no,
fixing my teeth. Yeah.
I'm judging.
And so, it's like, and we'll say no to it, no big deal. And then suddenly, some other day, we'll be coming across it, and it's like, I must have it. Why? I mean, there's just any number of influences that, depending on the context, are going to push us one way or another. It's why political polling is so notoriously difficult, because you'll literally have the same people answer differently depending on. And I love the fact that right now there's an entire commentary around whose favorite candy bar.
Yeah, look what you started.
Everybody's got it.
We are a polarized world.
Yeah, come here for my presentations. Stay for the nutrageous.
It's a Kit Kat, y'all. It's Kit Kat. I don't know what y'all talking about in the chat. It's a Kit Kat.
How will we ever be united when we can't decide on the candy bars?
So it's difficult to see how that works. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me ask you a serious question then on that line, David. So we talk about people being influenced by society change, progressive change, perhaps peer pressure, just the progression of how people think. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because obviously society has progressed dramatically in so many topics. We think of things that were acceptable 100 years ago that we absolutely do not accept now in society. Slavery, whatever we want to, misogyny, we have progressed as a society, and that's as a result of the forward momentum of positive peer pressure. What about topics such as these currently divisive topics of abortion rights or bodily autonomy? It's actually a good thing for progress to happen, right?
I absolutely do, and I say that with a very, 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 very strong caveat of people are hurt in the process. Like I can't. There are words simply cannot capture, what is, the number of lives that are going to be changed, damaged, destroyed, like harmed by any number of as we figure things out societally. And that is also true through all of human history. It would be great if we just had a download new software and boom, everybody is on target with the latest and greatest of, ethical considerations. We don't have that. It's really, really tricky. And, and we have this, especially in a country this large and this non-homogeneous, we have literally state to state variations. I mean, the fact that we still have 14 states that have anti-sodomy laws on the books. Now, granted, none of them are capable of legally being implemented or used against people, but it doesn't mean that they can't be brought up by people who
Right.
want to harass others. So
Right.
we still have that going on. I mean, seriously, we serious legal issues around butt sex. What the hell? Anyway, it's like, so we have these things that are a lot of just a lot of nuances depending on where you're at, and it is astounding at times how fast we are capable of changing and how fast we are capable of making progress on stuff that, had you asked anybody even a few years previous, to be like, you're out of your freaking mind that we're going to have that. I mean, there's just no way people would have considered fill in the blank of the last 200 years of this country's history. Like, we have gone so fast, and we are moving ever quicker through things that we have no idea where it's all going to land. And in fact, that actually exacerbates much of what is happening. Is we are moving so fast that our little, prehistoric brains are not really good at navigating it. Because if we consider the fact that, and this actually goes back a little bit to the comment around, triggering and how this works. If we can consider stress as a mental labeling of how we physiologically deal with change. And by change, I do mean literally any change. So I work with a lot of clients on transition spaces. And by transition, I do mean literally anything like moving from one room to the next. Like putting on, your clothes in the morning to the bigger ones, like going from home to work, and how this all works in practice. But transition spaces are where stress exists. It's where things are happening. Sometimes we feel it. It rises to the level of conscious awareness because it's a big deal. Most of the time, like, yeah, no big deal. We just kind of deal with it and move on. And I'm totally going to have to go back through and look at all the
people.
So, can I go
Sorry,
ahead?
Helen? No,
yeah,
Helen, please.
So do you think what you're saying about like stress in these transition periods, like the minor stresses that we deal with, with like work and family conflict and those are like stresses that we can identify, and certain stresses you just kind of know. It's like a part of the routine. Or like big societal changes like, Roe v. Wade or things like that, it affects people different because one, it's very an emotional reaction because it is not just affecting one family structure, is affecting the populace as a whole. And us being part of a society, we're going to think about it on a societal level, which is sometimes a little bit hard for our brains to wrap around how like this is going to affect everyone in that nuanced way, where like those little stresses are just easier for us to deal with because we're just kind of used to them. So, and I think that our little, evolutionary, reactive brain, what goes into fight or flight, doesn't know how to really sit down and process it when it gets to such a large scale on that level.
Yeah. Well, and we know this precisely because of how we react overly to small events that happen in our personal lives. And we have a really hard time wrapping our heads around national tragedies that happen a world away. Like, we might feel it, we might go, wow, that's tricky. Some of us who have really exercised our empathy muscle, might have a larger reaction. But by and large, we move on. I mean, if a for that matter, the COVID going on, it's still happening. One, it's probably never going to go away completely. But literally over 1 million extra, like more than the average deaths have occurred in this last couple of years, and we still have the vast majority of people going, why? Because if it's not personally felt, our brains don't do really well with large numbers. And and this will lead back to, we are actually talking about the abortion thing. I'm gonna bring it back here in just a second. But, you know, looking at big numbers, looking at big concepts, we're not really good at dealing with that. We have to, at some level, get to the nitty gritty of the individual experiences and how you actually deal with some of these, you know, difficult situations, because otherwise you never actually deal with the realities of what it is to be in the flesh, to actually deal with how we interact with one another.
So David, does that tie in with the psychology of being humans? Unless it affects us personally, we glaze over, or we forget, or we have a saturation point, or complacency as well. You were talking about the progression of society, perhaps even legally, but unless we catch up individually as members of society, can we also get to a point of complacency with some of these big social issues and topics and feel like, well, we've solved that, we've moved from that, and therefore what's happened now with the overturning through SCOTUS, it's come as a shock, because we've all thought we've dealt with this, we've progressed, and now we feel like we're 2 steps backwards. Is that part of this whole thing where humans go to a point where we think that's over with, we don't need to worry about it anymore? And yet problems still exist in the social consciousness of or individuals?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And this is true of you know, we innately gravitate towards echo chambers, you know, and one, they're safe. 2, we really don't like being challenged. And so, and part of that is that because of the way we view the world, it's not just an idea. Our worldviews are not just simply platitudes and stuff that we say in order to piss people off, unless you're on Twitter, then you totally do that. But otherwise,
Twitter's a
Truth
cesspool.
Social.
Yeah, it is.
Twitter's a cesspool, people.
I have an intense love-hate relationship with Twitter.
You can move across to Truth Social.
Oh,
yeah,
truth.
Truth Social, yeah. So it's not just, you know, words we're using. It's literally a way of looking at how we relate to and believe the world functions. So when we think of ourselves as being wrong, it's not just like, oh, I might be wrong. No, it's literally like, oh my God, the way the world works does not work the way I thought it did. I talk about increasing anxiety. Like this is so, in which is one reason why, you know, in fact, one big point about why I try to keep in context of literally any time that I work with, whether it's with a client or anybody else, anytime you're challenging, you're never just challenging the words. You are challenging the structure of the person's universe, at least in that particular moment. And there is a good piece there to keep in mind when people start getting incensed, ourselves included, around a topic, is to go, oh, okay, no, I'm having a reaction. It's not inherently wrong or right. It just is. And the reason for it is because how I view the world and how I think it should or does work is being violated. And so we're going to have a reaction to it. I mean, this is about survival. You know, our brains didn't evolve to figure out logic and truth with a capital T. They evolved in order to figure out how to make sense in such a way as to get us living just far enough to continue our species. That's it. We really don't care about truth. If it cared about truth, we'd have evolved a long time ago not to be tricked by mirages. But we are all the damn time. So the brains are not really caring too much about this concept. The fact that we can consider these things, the fact that we can, you know, delve into philosophy and so on, frankly, is just a testament, I think, to the amazing quality of just our biology. And it's a wonderful thing. But we never should forget that we are fundamentally a middle of the world, Middle Earth, kind of like, you know, feeling creature that is interested fundamentally in, you know, promoting the continuation of our flesh, and everything else is kind of superfluous.
So if we tie this back to the religion, the
Mhm.
abortion thing, I think that also too, and correct me if I'm wrong, because not only is this like a fear reaction, but it also ties into like this, the thing about our species that we procreate. We
Mhm.
want to continue forth the line, as they say. And for
Mhm.
a lot of people, it's like, I'm a parent, you know, and other parents that I talk to, the idea of like something happening to a baby, like this precious thing that we consider, is can be overwhelming. So I
Mhm.
think that for people that are, you know, are pro-child and don't really think abortion is bad, because they literally think that you're killing a child.
Mhm.
And so getting into that conversation with them about like nuances and, you know, viability and all these different things, it's a hard thing to break through, because they, in their brain, they're like, you are killing a child. It's not
Mhm.
a lump of cells. You know, we're us on the other side are like, I understand that, but we want people to have bodily autonomy.
Mhm.
And that's where that nuance kind of gets lost, especially because this particular topic is so emotional, and it on both sides creates that fear response.
Mhm. Well, and it's a good juxtaposition there between the autonomy on one hand and life on the other, because one, both sides care about both. This is not,
Yeah.
it's one of the fundamental things behind the APA's task force was noting that women who proceeded with an unwanted pregnancy also subsequently had more physical health problems, including two who died from childbirth complications. They faced more economic hardships, including worse credit scores, frequent bankruptcies, evictions, higher chance of living in poverty. After being denied an abortion, women were also more likely to stay linked to a violent partner or to raise children alone. Children born as a result of abortion denial were not only more likely to live in poverty, but they were also more likely to experience poor bonding with their own mothers. I mean, this is this is never the case of simply like, oh, I do or don't care about life or about choice. It is always about, instead, at what point are you making that decision and who gets to decide, period. This is the question, and this is why I don't avoid questions around, say, for instance, viability in life, precisely because it inserts a nuance to the discussion that I think, one, is needed in order to help break apart these like binary choices that most people are having. But two, I don't want the people who are more religiously minded in applying their religious epistemologies to that question. Like I don't want to concede issues around what is life and how does this begin, which I think is a derivation of it. But it's further, like, as technology continues to happen, like, we're going to be pondering these questions as we literally go on to other planets. I mean, we're going to be, one, we're searching for it, but two, say we go to Mars, we figure out faster than light travel. Oh, that'd be awesome. Probably not in my lifetime, but I can geek out and hope. It's like, if we ever figure this out, we go to another planet. One, having the question about, what do we consider life to be? Does it have to be carbon based? How does this all work? And then further, if I were to do X on this new world, how is this going to possibly, hey, say, wipe out an entire species because I didn't bother asking how does their world start? How do these things function? And so, I mean, these are going to be questions that we're going to need to, at some point, maybe not necessarily in any of our lifetimes, but eventually. And it's a good thing to, take stock of and going, the last thing I want is for these questions to be at the mercy of, a 2,000-year-old, storybook. I don't, that's not who I want to be in charge of. So, it's a, and further, it comes back to the flesh experience of being a mother, of going through and being pregnant, and going through and feeling like all of the variations of how pregnancy occurred, both in the wanted form and the all too insanely unwanted, number too often occasions, the unwanted form. It's like the fact that, and so in fact, here, before I get off on my own little tirade, one thing here from one article on, and I'll post this later, is from social sources of women's emotional difficulty after abortion. 2 social aspects of the abortion experience produced, exacerbated, or mitigated respondents' negative emotional experience. And those were negative outcomes were experienced when the woman did not feel that the abortion was primarily her decision, or did not feel that she had clear emotional support after. At no point in any of the studies that have so far gone, and again, I will throw out the caveat that there's still a lot more still to be studied, but at no point in any of this happened, any of the things that I've read, both in as well the APA's task force, it is never the act itself, and the act being abortion, that incurs a specific and necessary emotional traumatic response. Just isn't. It's not the act itself. It is everything surrounding it. It is one's personal, ideology when it comes to it. There's one paper that I actually found the direct link to, so anybody can download and read it. It's excellent, well worth reading, around the roles of one's notions of religion, free will, autonomy, how these ideas actually inform how a woman will consider the act previously, and then how they may consider it afterward. So ideas matter. It is never the act itself that by its own is, some kind of incurring a particular response. So
that's powerful. That's powerful. So can you put the link to that study there? So it is not the act itself, it is everything else external around that person, the society, the judgment, the background, the indoctrination, the trauma, that will contribute to how they feel about it.
Always. It always plays a role. So, in some ways it's similar to how do we know the efficacy behind, say, talk therapy, is that it's very rarely having to do with the techniques that are used. It is almost predominantly concerned with the relationship bond between the therapist and the client.
Yeah.
Like you have a shitty bond, not going to have great outcomes. It's just the way it is. It's why I always make a big deal out of, look, if we're not, if the rapport isn't there, you have a problem with me, something I said, by all means, I'm not going to take it personally, that you're going to find somebody that you're better able to bond with. Because that's where the success, by and large, not that there aren't terrible therapy techniques out there, but by and large, that is what is going to show support and progress, because we are inherently social creatures. We just bone deep. It does not matter if you refer to yourself as an extrovert or introvert. We are at core social creatures. And so, we live and die and make our meaning through how we relate to and with and within our social bonds. And when it comes to species questions around something so fundamental as procreation, it's little wonder that issues around sexuality as well are massively blown up for a lot of good reason, is because we're not just talking about who's got a favorite, car manufacturer. I mean, we're literally talking about things that go to the heart of what it means to be a human being in the processes that allow us to, continue on with our lives. That is not anything that is just going to be, coldly logical. Not that I like that affectation applied to logic, but anyway, it's never gonna go there.
So how
So,
can we, sorry, Helen?
yeah, so how do we, so for those of us in our like layman lives, because we're going to have these really difficult conversations, which, like you said, it's a good thing to have difficult conversations, but it is now, because this particular issue is now at the forefront of everybody's mind, how do we go about having this difficult conversation on the topic of abortion and not alienate the person that might be on the opposite end that you are? Because I know that I am an opinionated and emotional person, and but also at the same time I want to recognize the person that thinks opposite of me as a human being, and how they came to conclusions is valid to them, as how I came to my conclusions are valid to me. So we have to find a way to bridge the gap. So how would you suggest that we bridge that gap?
And that's where we get into shared humanity and actually shared values. And that is, so for one, in fact, the article that had to do with conflicts between women's religiosity and sense of free will in the context of elective abortion, which is by and large often where the sticky point in social policy comes in, is that the participants were ambivalent because they expressed relief while simultaneously experiencing the termination of the pregnancy as a loss that elicited negative feelings of grief. However, despite their suffering, the participants' respective abortions led to eventual increased self-awareness. Okay? Thus, this ambivalence can be regarded as not only problematic, but also indicative of an openness to the complexity of abortion issue from a moral point of view. So, invoked a lot of invocation principles around self-determination, linking it to, how they refer to it, in their freedom. This is, so much of this is going to be around, the support level that each person has at every stage of this process. And that begins with listening and hearing where people are coming from, and which is, and actually bringing up, there are nuances. I often throw out, I hear the whole thing, well, 65 to 70% of the public didn't want Roe v. Wade to be overturned. Yes and no. It's true if you ask that question purely at that way, but when you start getting into, well, are you okay with the government stepping in to stop this? Actually, that's a little higher. Are you okay with the government stopping it at the first trimester, second, third? Well, now all of a sudden the numbers are all over the freaking map, and they are a whole lot lower than that 70% the further along the pregnancy you go. Now, does that mean that everybody has a definitive answer on this? Actually, no. Because if you ask even more questions and try to get in the nitty gritty of how this actually works, they start throwing up all sorts of contradictory answers. Like and part of it, I think, is because we've had decades where people haven't had to think about it. They just said, I'm with this party and I'm with this party. And we had no conversations around how this was actually going to work in practice. And so people didn't need to wrestle with it. And now they are. And as a consequence, you've got a whole bunch of just crazy opinions and that are at the behest of, on one hand, it's a great thing that we have the technology that we now have now than when we did it when Roe v. Wade was decided, because we have the capacity now to spread information and stories and the lived experience of women everywhere fast. Like we know what people are going through at the drop of a hat. On the other hand, we have, of course, all of the issues that are associated with social media and the spread of a whole bunch of, crazy, loudest voice gets the most attention. So, how this is all going to pan out, I have no idea. I will note one thing here of the link to Valerie Tirico, who is just one of the most fabulous people I've ever had the absolute privilege of meeting. And she wrote an article while back about being not just simply pro-choice but pro-abortion, and she has actually 10 points, of why. And I'm not going to say I necessarily agree with every last little nuance piece of it. Then again, I don't agree with everything I think, so it is what it is. But there was a thing here on those who see abortion as an unmitigated evil often talk about the millions of missing people who were not born into this world because a pregnant woman decided, not now. But they never talk about the millions of children and adults who are here today only because their mothers had abortions. Real people who exist in this version of the future, people who are living out their lives all around us, loving and laughing and suffering and struggling and dancing and dreaming and having babies of their own. And which is very rarely, this is where I go immediately to the initial part of it's like, oh, if you have your babies, don't worry, I'll adopt them. But literally, I know you're lying. I know you're lying because there are millions of children who are still squandering in orphanages and everything out there. Like, you are lying. Period.
Yeah.
Like, I have no qualms calling that out. It is the most ridiculous rejoinder I've ever heard, because we only have to point to the continued existence of children in orphanages. Like,
and stuck in the foster care system. And
it is.
Yeah.
And so this is not going to be solved by those kinds of empty platitudes. And in recognizing the real experiences of so many people that are not only, it's the same kind of rejoinder of like, well, this baby could have cured cancer. Yeah, and this one could have been the next Pol Pot. I mean, let's consider
it's a false equivalency, because
it is.
Because we can't say that this child is going to grow up to be like the next Ted Bundy, or grow up to be the person that cures cancer. It's a null argument to have.
Exactly.
Because it's like, okay, fine, good, all right, great, that could have happened, but I think that the frustration comes from, we're having this rhetoric about, we're debating things like that, like these little like emotional arguments about nuances and things like that, which is frustrating for and I can say this as someone that is pro-abortion and pro-choice, that I don't want to have that argument. I want, because the person I'm having the argument with, if they have a daughter or someone with a uterus that is pushed up against the wall and needs to have an abortion, I want them to do it safely and with respect and with emotional support, so they can have their best life, because this is the life that they're living now. All those potential lives aren't in this fucking world, man. So let's deal with the people that are here now. Thank you very much.
And it's exactly those potential lives and how we relate to them. Because even if you're pro-choice, you are still relating to that potential in one way or another. And so getting as clear as possible, because I'm just going to say it again and probably said it 100 times already. None of this is a definitive, like I have all the answers out here. This is an evolving thing. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have given you one, answer. If you'd asked me 6 months ago, it probably would have given you some, maybe a little bit closer to where I am now, but still would have been different. I've already shifted a little bit, and I've shifted in the process of bigger freaking question marks. Like, it just is so tricky to start really navigating a lot of these things, which is again why, and I'll go to the helpful tips because I think we're timing around. And that is, one, emotions are often, if not always, an initial assessment of perceived change. Like, anytime we have an emotional reaction, it's because, wow, something just shifted from some nebulous point A to point B, And now I have this knee-jerk response to it. And whether or not it's something that happened in support of what I wanted, oh, positive, or it's something that I didn't want to happen, ooh, negative. You know, which can change, of course, based on the number of factors, including time. You know, so some of the studies that I already quoted before, you know, it's like you have grief, and then later on you have greater self-awareness and acceptance. So a lot of this goes into how, you know, our emotional experiences do not have an immediate and necessary connection to any, you know, ethical or, you know, necessary behavioral outlet. Like they just exist as initial assessments of what's going on. So you'll often hear, like, for instance, I could go back to that one about the grief. And I've heard it actually, because I grew up fundamentalist. I almost went to Moody Bible Institute, really wanted to go. That would have been a different life. Anyway, you know, it's just like, you know, like, you know, this is a variation here in going, well, let's see if we can nitpick and stop right in the sentence in the middle there. See, women experience grief. And if you just stop there, then you've made a point. If you go to the rest of it, now you've made a separate one. Is it as clear? No. Is it more helpful? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so being aware of in all of these situations, like not judging regardless of who it is, but particularly, you know, the, you know, women who are going through this process of deciding, going through pregnancy, going through all of it. At no point should any of us be judging any of them in a single point of reference, period. I have talked with women before who started off on one hand and went all the way to the other and vice versa. And if we were to have stopped the conversation at any single point along the road, it would have been a disservice to them.
So you're saying we can progress and we can evolve, and we're not stuck in a particular moment in time or thinking.
Thankfully. Otherwise, yeah, shoot, I'd still want to be a baggage handler at the grocery store. So, because that's really what I wanted to do when I was 10. I'm like, no. I mean, this is not, no, we thankfully progress. I mean, that's why we're not, you know, still throwing up drawings on cave walls. Instead, you know, we do it on our skin and on the internet, the modern day cave walls. I mean, it's just like we progress not only individually, we progress societally, and sometimes it is really nasty to go through, and other times it's shocking, and another times it's amazing. And what is happening societally is happening individually. And if we're going to allow for the larger piece to evolve and get better, we need to be able to take a look even internally in ourselves and go, how often have you know, our own ideas shift and evolve? I mean, I'm literally talking to a group who by and large used to believe in variations of deities, and maybe some still do, and yet even then there's been an evolution. I mean, really read the article from Kansas in particular. Most of the quotes there are from religious leaders who are saying they are pro-choice. Evangelical leaders, believers. This is why I don't present this purely as a religious question, because one, religious doesn't really tell me anything about you. It really doesn't, any more than I get the question of like, do you believe in God? And I always ask, which one? Yeah. Why? Because the term is meaningless until you start filling it in. And I am much more interested in how you use it to interpret your world and how you want to act in it than I am at all interested in what kind of dogma you're going to spout at me. Because at the end of the day, you're going to align with the complexity and the cognitive dissonance that is the heart of being human, far more than whether or not you believe in, you know, the Bible, as if there's only one, or the Pope or whatever religious leader or tradition or anything. Like, you can spout that all day long. until you actually get to the nitty gritty of what's happening, I'm just going to go, that's nice. Thank you for letting me know. And can we get to the real stuff here? Because this actually is where it matters. And that's where we get into the emotions again, is recognizing that as we work through this, not stopping at any point and saying, oh, now I get to define who you are because of this particular reaction. No, I don't want that for me. It's certainly, I'm not going to try applying it to anybody else either. And that's where the second, keep the conversation flowing. We have the greater degree we avoid authoritarianism and fundamentalist judgments. The more we engage in steel manning, or in the latest thing from FAIR, about star manning. Love the concept. It's not just the best argument. It's also the best argument combined with the love of the shared humanity you have. Because that's where people are going to respond best to. Totally an allusion to We Are Star stuff. I love it. It is. And then, of course, support does not mean acquiescence. In the sense that you can support even people you disagree with as they struggle through, some of what's going on, without necessarily going, I agree with everything you stand for right now. I mean, this is fundamentally one of those things that, particularly as a therapist, you have to run into all the time. I don't agree with everything my clients do. Like, that'd be absurd. At the same time, there is a functionality to the role and to the relationship that is about support. And it's not that we all need to become therapists. I wouldn't wish that on anybody necessarily. Like, it really, if I can still maintain the notion of calling for my religious upbringing, I swear that applies to anything you're going to do, like social work and so on. You have to really want it, and be slightly masochistic. But if you're gonna, it's not that everybody needs to do this. Embody that completely. It's just a little piece of going, you're struggling, and I'm going to support the space for the continuation of that struggle. Because as soon as I make it impossible for you to shift and mold and maybe even be contradictory, then I cut off the capacity for you to change.
Well, and that makes sense, because I think that a lot of people, they can hold, those contradictory views in their brain, but because I do it, everybody all the time. But it's just the idea of opening the person up to examining and asking questions about those things that they're holding in their brain. So on that note, would you like to answer some questions?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Sasha, do you want to take the first one, and we'll switch swap? That's words
Sure.
are hard.
No, we don't have a lot of time, so we'll try and move through these fairly quickly with you, David, if that's all right. But these are questions that have been put to us from the chat or directly. Do you feel that women with trauma associated with abortion are more religious than the ones not experiencing trauma after?
So far, at least from what I've gathered, there is no difference. Not in a definitive way. It is because what ends up happening is that it's not the religious ideology per se. It's the social grouping that tends to be a result of. And so, and it's that support or lack thereof that tends to then contribute to, not in a one-to-one ratio, but it contributes to or influences the degree to which they are able to move through both the initial decision, but then the after effects later. Because let's face the fact that regardless of, even if you are, say, 100% like pro-choice, this is not an ethical issue, there's little concerns, what's going on, afterwards you've got total social support, you have still fundamentally altered your body. And I mean that in the most objective way possible. You have fundamentally altered what was going on biologically. Internally speaking, that is going to result in a lot of just disruptions. It just is. And I'm not putting an ethical judgment on it. I'm not putting any kind of judgment. It just is. And this is, I mean, we talk about concepts like hangry. I mean, if we can get angry over the fact we haven't had a Snickers bar in a while. I love those commercials. But if we haven't had that, like, you know, and now I've restarted the whole candy bar debate again. But I mean, it's like, if we can get angry just from that, the shift hormonally in like all of it that has occurred in the ending of pregnancy, yeah, this is not going to be a simple thing to just walk through. And so allowing for that space, all the more in the support is what's needed.
So on that note, I'm glad you said that. The next question was, because it tied in directly, do any abortion providers like Planned Parenthood or women's clinics provide mental health care after referrals, not just the physical health care, but mental health care?
From what I gather, and do not take my word for this, because that is actually something I now need to get a better, clearer example or idea of. Not very much. In fact, virtually, I mean, almost all the recommendations I saw from the APA and, you know, plenty of the other studies is that it's an encouragement to clinics and so on to provide support and mental health care afterwards, regardless. And in fact, one of the indicators to note that there will be some greater difficulty emotionally after is the degree to which the woman is filled with self-judgment ahead of time. If they're highly self-critical, that tendency, just like, you know, if we're prone to depression or prone to any number of things, will latch on to any change in the environment, internally or otherwise. So, you know, so knowing that, it's a way of going, ooh, okay, we've assessed this. Here's somebody who's, you know, highly critical. Probably we should, you know, make sure even more so and connect them with, even if it's, you know, for a short time, like at least having that space in a non-judgmental, supportive space is hugely helpful. And so anytime we can do that, you know, some organizations do it better than others, but I don't think it's actually a very universal thing. And that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. Because we all know that we need more mental health care. Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, not just on this type, but just in general. Like, I think everybody should have a therapist. Everybody.
Yep. Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm going to move on to another topic, another mental health topic. So since change assumes loss and then grief, no matter how small, what are the various causes of grief with the abortion arena?
Whew. Yeah.
This is a very light and easy question.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm understanding the question right, and whoever said it, by all means, you know, respond if I'm not touching on it correctly. But and that has to do with I touched on it a little bit there at the end in one of the last questions, and that is the changes that we're making to just bodies when you're going through this, and there is a loss. There's a loss of potential. Well, we talk about potential life, but we also, you know, and this is the thing, like most women who are having an abortion often already have kids. Or in fact, and often then go on to have one. So this is not the caricature of it's simply another form of birth control. Yes, there are some that have used it as such. I'm much, frankly, more interested in the majority. And so you have women who have, like, they viscerally know what it is to please, to want, you know, to look forward to all of the experiences that they're going to have with this child. Hence, and I quoted this earlier, around those who are are forced into or have had their abortion denied and have the kid, the pair bond between the mother and the child is often less.
Timing wasn't right. Yeah.
I mean, like, well,
Mhm.
of course.
Mm.
So, because at that point, now you're looking at loss as well, because your loss of all of the stories you did have that now weren't because you were forced into the situation. You now have the loss of everything that you could have done beforehand,
Mhm.
and so on. I mean, this loss is not this like one-way street. You only feel it one way. Like that's absurd. So anytime that there is a shift in the projected hope or plan and the reality, we're going to experience loss and grief in various ways. And so this is fundamental to all of this in all of, yeah, all of its
This
contours.
is weighing up
And
which loss is more important at that
And,
particular point in time for the
and
person, or
yeah,
yeah,
yep.
and
And
even
it's timing. I am not going to put a number on this and go, your grief is worse than you.
Mhm.
I'm not playing that game.
comes out to the
So,
individual to decide what's best for them, right?
and there
and
we
I
come
can
back.
and I
Yep.
can say, yeah, as a parent, even though I wanted my children, I still mourned things that I lost that I wasn't able to do because I decided to have children. So it's not even black or white that way either, because you can still want a child and choose to do it and still mourn the things and wonder, like, what if I decided not to have a kid? What if I had lived my life kid free or waited longer or whatever? I mean, like, I can remember I got pregnant with my son right around this time when I was finishing some secondary education, some college level education. I was hoping to enter a field, didn't get to do that. I was pregnant and decided to have my son, and and I'm glad I have him because we're very close and I love him to death. But there's a part of me that was like, when I found out I was pregnant, I was angry. I was frustrated because I was like, fuck, I found out like 2 days before I graduated that I was pregnant. So, and so it's not just black and white. Like, you choose not to have kids or you choose to have kids, and everything is hunky dory based on that decision, because it's not. It's always
Yeah.
nuanced and complicated because that's just the way we are.
Yep. And it will change throughout your life.
Yeah.
It just is. I mean, even from the male perspective, at least my biological male's perspective. I mean, it's like I had a vasectomy when I was 25, which is the actual minimum age. And the surgeon actually was like, you're going to meet a woman, it's going to change your mind, blah, blah. And I literally I wrote a letter. Like, it was a 1-page philosophical point by point letter as to this is why I'm not going to have children, biologically, and so on. I got a phone call the next day and surgery happened. Never think that it's that easy. It hurts like hell. But anyway, totally another thing. But it's like, but even since then, like, do I look back more years than I care to count since that happened to say that I am 100% in favor of that original decision? No. Am I still comfortable with having made the decision? Yeah. But to say that I don't at times, in my own way, wrestle with, what could have been? How would I have been a father? How would I have done this? And that also opens up, there's issues of adoption and everything. Like, I eschewed all of those options. And so, but there's always that question. And that's from, here where I wouldn't actually be like building it within my own body. I can't even like, it's different. I can't actually. I can come like maybe close, but there's just no way. And yet at the same time, the notion of loss, the notion of wrestling with potential, is still something that can, in my own way, touch on. And I think all of us can. And even if it isn't exactly the same degree, I'm not even going to discuss degrees. It's not the point. The point is that you have the capacity to regret, to challenge yourself, to wonder, to ask about potential, means that there is something to then empathically bond with whoever is going through this as yeah, this is not a simple thing. So,
but you know, when you say that, David, you're respecting the decision that you made at a different point in time without, that does not discount the fact that things may change or people's views may change. It's respecting your own choice, respecting other people's choices that are made at a specific point in time. And that doesn't then dictate what that choice has to be for the rest of time either. It's just basic personal respect, as it is for respect to other people in society.
Right. Yeah.
Right. We have time for one more question because we are running a little bit over, which is fine because this is a really good topic. And especially with this topic, it is not a like really quick thing that you just hit some points and then you're done. It's a very complex and nuanced conversation. So we're going to, Sasha, do you want to take the last question before we start wrapping things up at this talk? And thank you, David, because this is a complicated thing. So we really do appreciate going into those finer points because it's not easy.
Yeah, thanks, David. So a bit of an amalgamated question. So in a nutshell, what is the key for society or for a community to progress in a respectful way, a dignified way? And how do we engage with people who don't necessarily reflect a position that we might fall on?
I actually think I gave an entire presentation on this a while back. So consult the RfR library. But in a nutshell, so much of this is about finding I'm going to come back to that Star Manning, point. It's not just about figuring out the best form of an argument that is contrary to you. And I think the important thing to consider there is because there's more to it than that, precisely because we are more than just an argument. We are a living, breathing flesh bag of contradictory things in a world that is constantly pulling us in 1,000 different directions. And so we need to do more than just simply come up with and understand each other's arguments. We also have to be able to look at each person in the eye and go, yeah, welcome to humanity and all of the messiness. And I'm reminded of, I think it was the philosopher Goethe, it's like, there but for the grace of God go I. And if you want to replace God there with chance, go right on ahead. I think it's essentially the same thing. It's like there but for 1,000 variations that I had no control over, I'd be in that position or something similar. And if that doesn't inspire a certain level of humility and ability to reflect on this person who is in a different place than you are, then I don't know what does. But that's how we move forward.
Brilliant.
That's a good point. And
nice way to round it.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate it. So are you going to stick around for the hangout?
Yeah, I'll be able to hang out for
okay. So
not as long as usual, but somewhat.
Okay, so if you did not get to ask your, if we did not get to your question, please save it to the hangout. Again, thank you to David for talking about this nuanced, complicated topic. But thank you very much, because it is definitely one we definitely need to have, because there is a lot of mental and emotional stuff surrounding this particular thing, and it's nothing that's going to go away soon, people. it be what it be. So get the emotional support that you need. So next week, what are we doing? Let me tell you. I'll have Sasha tell you what we're doing next week. Sasha, tell us what we're doing next week, man.
Thanks. So we're working off an outline here together, and we're both jumping in over the top of one another. My apologies, Helen. So it's please fine. Come back next week. Each week we have a totally different topic, and as we mentioned, all of our previous ones can be found on the YouTube channel. But next week we have a professor of biology, Dr. Nathan Lentz, will be joining us to discuss the history of the modern intelligent design movement. He'll cover the major tenets and the efforts of intelligent design and how they get the science wrong. Interesting. He will review some recent attempts to promote the movement as a scientific one and discuss how the claims have been debunked. That's interesting. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and Cara will be back, the hostess with the mostest, and we'll be joined by our buddy Rob Palmer, who will also be here. They will be hosting this wonderful event, so please tune in. Same bad time, same bad channel, y'all. So, and if you cannot get enough RfRx, please go to our YouTube channel, as I mentioned before, for all of our wonderful previous recordings. We're a little bit behind on the YouTube channel, but all the recent episodes are again on the your podcast server. So Spreaker, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can't see our wonderful faces, but you can definitely hear us talk, which we like to do over here. So do that. Also, if you have any topical questions, hate mail, tell us how awesome we are. Send us gifts. We'll give you our PayPal. Please go give Cara an email at rfrx@recoveringfromreligion.org. Again, find our blog for on topics related to recovering from religion, mental health, and all that type of stuff. So check that out. Again, check out our podcasts on different things relating to recovering from religion and these sort of topics that we have talked about before, and also some fun stuff too. There's some fun stuff there too. We're not always talking about, religion, or sometimes we're talking about baking or TV shows and stuff. So definitely check that out. Also, if y'all can help us out, go to the social medias. We love our socials, so please check out our Facebook page, our Facebook support group page, where you can meet other people to get a little bit more support when you're not getting enough RFR and you just happen to be on Facebook and you see posts and you want to be supportive, or you need some online support. You can do that. Also, too, go on Twitter. It's not completely a cesspool. I will take that book. We are on Twitter and it makes it better. So go on the Twitter and we'll be posting links on things that we have coming up and all that jazzy stuff. Also, too, we are on the Instagram and we're on the TikTok. So do that. Also, too, if you want to get some cool stuff in your email besides how to buy boner pills, please go to sign up for our newsletter. So in this way, you can find out more stuff that's going on with recovering from religion, news, resources, recent videos, and blog posts. So on that note, Sasha, tell us about our new support group that we got going on.
Yeah, so we've got probably the foundation of RFR is the support groups. And as we mentioned, you can find all of the support groups on the main page. We try and provide a support group that caters to everybody and tries to provide a safe space for everyone. So we have a brand new support group started up specifically for the LGBTQIA+ community. If you'd like to make your way along, it's the third Sunday of each month, 7 p.m. Central Time, US time, of course. You can find the link on the main page. And then the link to the meetup group as well is on there. We would love to have your company along. We found that we had so many people from so many support groups that were asking for specific groups that could help them in their community. We also have a women's only group, which has been a fantastic safe place for women to discuss things who have come out of perhaps a misogynistic religious background where us men told everybody what to do. Well, no men welcome. That's a women's only group. So we have groups available for everybody wherever we sit, and they provide that safe space and that really supportive environment for one another.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and launch our exit poll, and why that is going on, I'm going to introduce our wonderful executive director, Gayle Jordan. Gayle, go ahead and give us your final thoughts, what you thought of this talk and all that wonderful stuff.
Thank you, Helen. David, thank you so much. Every time you lead us, and I think you said we were up to about a tally of about 8 times, you give us something to think about, and this was no exception, particularly this psychology of abortion where nothing is simple. I learned so much from your assessing this from a psychological point of view and recognizing, I think Glenda and I even mentioned it in the chat, it's a sign of growth that multiple things can be true at simultaneously, and understanding that we talked about both grief and loss and relief being a part of the abortion experience, but then also those of us who feel so passionately about this issue are full of just rage. We're so angry that we've gotten to this point. We're so angry that people can't understand this. We're so angry on behalf of our sisters and other people who can be pregnant that they're not protected in this way. And so we have this rage. And so at the same time, we recognize the very, very difficult task that you have reminded us of, which is that will accomplish nothing. We have to back up. We have to be patient. We have to understand where another person is coming from. So I think what has helped me is to have multiple components of approaching this. Most people know that Glenda here in the room is my daughter, and she has a twin, and the three of us, the three girls, we get together when we rant and we rave, and it feels good, and we can express some things and we get them out. I also have a street corner in my little town that has a Saturday Dead Babies on Posters group, and every time I go past them, I lower my window so I can get both of my flipping off fingers out at one time and drive with my knees, because it feels so good for me to do that. But when I've done that and I've flipped them off and I've ranted to Glenda and Amy, it allows me to get to a calmer place, so that when I'm talking to my 84-year-old mother about it and she's making progress on her views on abortion, it puts me in a calmer place, and it puts me in a place where I can be more rational and more compassionate and more patient and more understanding. So you always remind us of that, of how complex we are, and our anthropological heritage, our primitive heritage that's feeding into how we feel about these issues. Anyway, I so appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming again and leading us in this very important topic. Thank you to all of you who attended tonight. I just love seeing your faces on Monday night. It's the highlight of my week. As usual, thank you to our crew, our troll stompers, and our hosts, Sasha and Helen, and our behind the scenes, and Nikki with what she does with Discord, and Kara for getting it all loaded for us and getting it ready. Thank you, everyone, so much for the support that you've given us. If you need some help, reach out to us. You know that our number is well, you don't have to do the 1 anymore, but 84, I doubt it. Or you can find the green chat bubble on our Recovering from Religion website. And if you need to have one of those support places, find a support group. As the guys explained in the very beginning, it doesn't have to be someone geographically close to you. It's something that may work with your schedule, so that you can have both sides of what we just talked about. You can have the support side, but you can also have the venting and the ranting and the get it out of your system, because those of us who have been surrounded by religion sometimes find that those issues get buried very, very deep, and sometimes they surface and we have to get them out again. So don't feel badly about that. Thank you for coming. I look to see you next week. Have a nice night, guys.